Hey guys, Jeff Perry here. I just wanted to create a quick video tutorial on how I created these blob wallpapers that I shared on Tablet Habit. So, here's a quick look at some of them that I made. I shared them all for free, and you can download them at the Tablet Habit newsletter. You can go to tablethabit.com and find all the information you need to kind of find where you can get those. Or I will have a link in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. So these are all created 100% by me, but I wanted to share with you how I created them in the event that you wanted to make something similar to it or just wanted to learn a new way to create some cool wallpapers. So I'm an Affinity designer. It's kind of the application that I prefer to use for most of my wallpaper making and things like that. I think that Affinity Designer kind of meets all of my needs, but if you prefer to use a different application, maybe you could take something I'm showing you here and transfer it over to that application. I would actually be really interested to know how others are using their iPads to make wallpapers if they're not using Affinity Designer or Affinity Photo. Are they using Photoshop or some sort of other photo editing app that I'm not familiar with? I'd love to know. But anyway, from here, you would go to the new document page, and if you are creating a wallpaper for yourself, you can create one specifically for your device. Affinity Designer is really cool in that effect, where you can kind of just choose the device that you're using. In this case, this is the iPad 11-inch, so I'm just going to select that. All of the iPad wallpapers that I created for the Blobs series was actually for the iPad 12.9, but they fit really well for the iPad 11. And if you want to use a section of it, they work really well on an iPhone as well. So we're going to create that, and now we are in the blank canvas mode, or well, that's what I like to call it. You're going to learn that I really don't know the specifics of the design elements here, but this is kind of where things kind of start. Obviously, you want to create some sort of color palettes or whatever. You can use an app like Pastel or Aurora or some other color finding app if you prefer, but I'm just going to kind of wing it for this one just because this is just a quick tutorial on how I do it. This isn't going to be a full-on wallpaper that I make. So you want to go to the left side here and look at where the square is and actually choose the ellipse section. From there, you're going to just start creating ellipses. Now I'm going to change the color to where it's a little bit more noticeable. I'm going to choose red here. I'm just going to create a couple different sizes and shapes and just kind of lay the groundwork for what I'm doing when it comes to creating these blobbed wallpapers. So this looks pretty good, pretty sufficient. One other thing I like to do is create a huge background one. You might notice that there's an offset color in like half of the wallpaper. That's because I create a huge eclipse. So I'm going to make that one blue. We're going to create a new one. Make that one blue. So we're just going to make a big blue one. Just going to make a quick guide change and bring this all the way to the background. Now the color's not going to stay this. This is not exactly the palette that I would choose to use or to start with. You definitely want to have something that's a little bit more comparable or complementary maybe. But if you want to make something weird and wacky, go for it. But this one I think I'm just going to stick with some like earth tone kind of setup or whatever, but just for the tutorial's sake, I'm going to use these big red ovals. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, and I'm going to select all of these layers. And as you can see, all the layers are selected, and from there I'm going to click on, or tap I should say, on the triple dot icon here, and I'm going to convert to curves. You can find that in the second column in the middle. And now that everything is created in curves, you can go ahead and start the process of making these a little bit more malleable, a little less circular, and a little bit more blobby, for lack of a better term. In order to do that, you need to select one of the first layers that you want to work on. So I'm going to select this guy up here. And I'm going to go to the node tool. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, it's the second arrow from the top. If you select that, you got node tool. And from there, you've got these 4 points. And you can move these 4 points and kind of change how these circles interact. You can even add ones if you select one of the sides and go from there. You can kind of do whatever you want. I'm going to go back and just use the 4 that were given me because that's kind of how I've been using them for the most part. You can zoom into if you really want to get in there and understand what you're making and make some quick changes if you want. Like make the curves a little bit more forgiving and make them look a little bit more continuous as opposed to You know, if you wanted to select them in node mode and have something a little bit more sharp, you can kind of do that too if you really wanted to. No wrong way to how to make these, but I definitely have an aesthetic in mind of how I want mine to look. So I'm going to go ahead and undo. And I'm going to do this for all of them. And you'll see a quick little time lapse of how I do it. All right, now that I've kind of created the area in which I want to kind of have these blobs and kind of morph them into the place that I want them, I'm going to start playing around with color palettes and kind of understanding what I want this piece to kind of look like. All right, now that that's kind of done, I like the palette color here. I like how everything kind of molds well together. There's a little bit of contrast, but they all kind of seem to be in the same family, if you will. So now that I've got the blobs and stuff made and created the way that I want them to, I am going to go ahead and start adding the dots and stuff that I created before. So it's a very similar process to that of the uh, big blobs here that I've already shown you how to make, but I want to make small ones that kind of go in these blobs here as well. So in order to make that happen, I am going to create very small ones and then duplicate them and continue that process as a copy and paste kind of tool. I will show you how to do that here now. So the first thing that you want to do is go ahead and change the color to something that's going to be much more noticeable. I already had that selected by mistake. So I'm going to create my small one. So as you can see, it's there. It's the same color as I had before, so let's make that better. Let's change the color on that now. And I think it's actually below. It is. It's below everything, which is not ideal. So we're going to bring that to the top. And now I'm just going to do what I did before, convert to curve, and kind of make it a little less uniform and make it a little more oblong. There we go. Looks great. So now that we've got that selected and we're in move tool mode, we're going to duplicate. And now that we've got duplicate, we're just going to move it up. And I like to have the magnet selected so that it has the ability to kind of connect at different points, and you can kind of bring them up however you want. And I think that looks great. We'll probably have to make this smaller, but that's okay. And from there, we're just going to hit duplicate again. But the cool thing is now that I've done it once, it's going to do it again and create it like so. So we're just going to continue doing that process. Okay, and now that I've got a decent amount duplicated, what I'm going to do now is, like I said, I want to make these smaller. These are a little bit larger than what I want for this space here. So we're going to go back into the layers, and we're going to just swipe from right to left, select all of the curves, and we're going to group them. If you see this guy here in the middle, it's the third spot from the left. It's kind of like a puzzle piece. That groups them, and now they're all in one little section. So now that I've got them selected, I can scale them down. Lovely. So now I've got those there. I can move them and rotate them and kind of do whatever I want with them. Let's zoom in, take a look real quick. I'm going to have these overlay just a smidge. And I'm going to clean up and make it look a little bit better here in just a second. But we're going to do the same process as we did before with each individual one. We're just going to duplicate again. And I like the shape of this. I think this is actually looking out really cool. So we're going to go back into the layers. We're going to select all the groups, and we're going to group them again. And one cool thing you can do is that you can not only just group them, you can actually pull them into different sections. So if you look here, we're going to move this just a smidge to where it's off center here. And that looks cool, but what if I wanted to have it only show on the spot where this big blob was showing? You could do that by selecting the group, dragging it over into there. Instead of it having going above or below, have it be dead center in the layer, and that becomes a group within that layer. And you can now see that no matter what, its only space is within this blob. So I'm actually going to move it over here. I think that actually looks nicer here. And now that I've already created one, I can create another and just move it on to other blob sections and such. But I'm going to make this one real simple, only have this one. And I'm going to change the background, instead of it being this white here on the left side, to be an offset of the big blob's color. So we're just going to create a rectangle real quick. Make that big. Bring it down to the center, or the bottom, I should say. And change the color. So we're just going to select that blue, and we're going to offset it just a smidge. We can add more green, we can add more red. I don't like any of that. I think I'm going to make it either lighter or darker. So I'm going to go back to the color wheel and just drag it along here and see. That looks great. All right, and that's the blob. That's the earth tone blob. I will have a link to this wallpaper in the description or in the email, whatever one you're watching this on. And you can download it as well. But if you have any interest in making your own, I highly suggest that you do. And if you want, share them with me on Twitter at IamJeffPerry, or shoot me an email and let me know what you made. Maybe I'll even showcase it in Tablet Habit. So I hope that helps. I hope that that was informative and fun. But if you did like it, maybe I'll make more of these in the future. So until then, have a great day, and you can find me over at tablethabit.com. Thanks.